Hey everyone, thanks for joining me for today's video. We're actually not going to review any fragrances during this conversation. I wanted to share some thoughts with those of you that are newer to the fragrance world. Perhaps you are a viewer who just got into perfume and collecting, or perhaps you're a creator and there are some things that maybe are confusing to you. You're just sort of new to the perfume content creation game. If that sounds good to you, please stick around and consider subscribing. We have a very fun community of like minded individuals who enjoy fragrance, and we keep it light, bright, and happy over here on this channel. So, my name is Veronica. If you're new, as you see from the name of the channel, Veronica says, I started my channel back in December of 2020 at the height of COVID when a lot of us were indoors and bored and looking for ways to connect with humanity outside of our doors. And being online was a wonderful outlet to meet some new content creator friends and perfume lover friends out in the audience as well. I didn't know quite what I was doing at that time. I knew that I enjoyed fragrance and have loved fragrance since I was a little girl. My mother, my aunts, my uncles, everyone in my life wore fragrance all the time. It was a big deal. Like, you didn't go out of your house unless you smelled good. And if you went to a family affair or any other kind of special occasion, you were doused in fragrance. So, as a little girl, my mother had all of the classics on her shelf and I would try them out. I'm talking about Shalimar, Opium, Obsession, Oscar de la Renta, all of the what were called then Oriental fragrances that were heavy, some were spicy, there were lots of florals in her life. She wore a lot of fragrance, and I, as a little girl, would sneak and wear some of hers when I was younger. Can you believe? Can you believe? That as a late elementary school going child, I wore things like Shalimar to school. Outrageous by today's standards, but at that time, I thought I was cute. And then I got into middle school and had the chance to have some of my own fragrances. And then I got into things, I still wore Obsession, but I got into fragrances like Chantilly. Do you remember that? I still have a bottle of that. I shouldn't say still, excuse me. I purchased a new bottle of that, especially after I started my channel. And, some other fragrances that I've talked about on my channel, especially at the beginning. I really enjoyed the journey of getting to know new fragrances as I got older. And I always had a tray of fragrances on my dresser at one point or another. And there were different types throughout the decade. So, a little bit about me. Yes, I wore and was into all of those crazy heavy fragrances when I was a little girl and into middle school. In high school, I got into some more sort of citrusy fragrances. In college, it was both citrus and light fragrances. And that was the era of CK1 and CKB, where the concept of an androgynous fragrance entered the fragrance sphere, and people started to experiment with fragrances that were unisex. I also wore Victoria's Secret. I loved like Pear Glacé, that fragrance, and Body by Victoria's Secret, and several others. It was also the era of Estee Lauder's Pleasures, if you remember that. That was like a groundbreaking fragrance for myself and my college friends. After college, I stuck to citruses for a long time, or like freshy kinds of fragrances. I also started to love earthy fragrances. So I got into fragrances that smell like Aveda hair products. If you're familiar with the Aveda line or Aveda salons, if you've ever walked into one, they smell herbaceous and earthy, and like there's something gritty about them. So I went through a whole era where I loved all of those kinds of earthy fragrances, grounding fragrances. And then as I got into my 30s and older, I started to experiment even more. I remember purchasing a bottle of Christian Dior Dune, which is a very strong fragrance, and wearing that to the office. I had a bottle of Chanel No. 5. My mom wore that too when I was little. I've had a bottle of Chanel No. 5 for like forever. What an iconic fragrance. Later into my 30s, I purchased ginger essence from Origins and loved that as well, so on and so forth. And as I got into my 40s and older, I started to experiment with heavy florals and a variety of other fragrances. As I started my channel, I got deep into very heavy fragrances like leathers and heavy ambers, spicy resinous fragrances, fall fragrances, winter, the heavy hitters, and everything in between. So when I tell you that I have tried, either had bottles of or sampled thousands of fragrances, I have sampled a ton of fragrances across the spectrum, including masculine leaning and men's fragrances and all of that. That does not make me an expert at all. It just means I've tried a lot of different fragrances and I have a very, very wide palette of interest in different kinds of olfactive families and types of fragrances and so forth. If you ask me today, This is spring of 2025 that I'm filming this. I would tell you my favorite categories are white florals with a little bit of depth, like if they have a little bit of vanilla or sandalwood or something like that to kind of ground the fragrance. Love those. And I also love skin scent, warm yet clean and cozy, musky, your skin but better types of scents. I'm like obsessed with that right now. In fact, my scent of the day, hold on, is Perfect Marc Jacobs, the EDT, because it feels like a your skin but better, fresh, easygoing spring fragrance. So those are my favorite categories at the moment. It's possible that next year I'll fall in love with a different fragrance group, and that's kind of one of the sort of lessons that I want to share with you. I welcome you too to share your own lessons down in the comments, particularly if you've been kicking around fragrance YouTube for a long time. Share with our newer viewers or newer content creators some thoughts you have about lessons you've learned. So, this video is not intended to be condescending or judgmental or any of those negative things. It really is just sort of a heart to heart about the things that I've come to realize, me, myself, and I'm not speaking for anyone else, since I have started my channel. So, the first one, and this is a very important one because I think that people get disillusioned when they don't heed this advice, myself included, we've all been there. It's very, very easy to jump onto the buying bandwagon. A lot of us have been there, and maybe some of us were smart enough to never go there. And if you're one of those people, high five to you. I know when I started my channel, and again, I'm on the content creation side. And so I wanted to purchase as much as I could to share with my audience because one of the goals of my channel, everyone has different goals for their channel and what they want to do. One of my goals is to bring variety to the audience and introduce people to fragrances that maybe perhaps they haven't heard of so that they can try different things and just experience the joy of learning about different types of fragrances. So, number one, a lesson that I learned the hard way, and a lot of us have learned the hard way. You don't need to buy every damn perfume. You just don't. It's really easy when we first jump into the fragrance game, regardless of if you've liked fragrances for decades like me. When you get into what we call frag com, the fragrance community, into the social media side of perfume exploration and content and all of that, and you start to learn about a lot, it's really easy to feel FOMO, which is fear of missing out. Somebody says something is great. Wow, I think I want that. I think I need that. Add to cart, bring it home. And so people get into the habit of blind buying. I'm still a blind buyer. If you're new, that just means that you buy a fragrance without testing it first, like the whole bottle comes to your house. That's what blind buying means. A lot of us have been there and done that, where we have filled up a cart, spent more than we maybe intended to spend or maybe wanted to spend. Whether or not you can afford it, that's a whole nother conversation. So I'll mention that in just a minute here. And then we're here with bottles of fragrances, some which we like, some which we don't. And what can tend to happen, particularly if you're in the social media space of fragrance reviews and you're listening to people review a lot of fragrances, is it's hard to understand at first that the content creator is just sharing their own personal experience with a fragrance and that their opinion may be different from yours. I know that sounds really elementary to people that have been in the game for a bit, but if you're brand new, I remember thinking this. I remember in 2019, 2020, when I first discovered that there was even such a thing as fragrance YouTube, hearing content creators describe fragrances and thinking, oh, she thinks it's wonderful. I'm going to like that too. That sounds great. I will like it. And so I would purchase it, try it, and wear it and have a different experience than what I heard the content creator say and think to myself, ooh, what happened here? Is something wrong with me? And then sometimes what happens is that a viewer may be then disillusioned with fragrance content and start to feel like the content creators are lying. Now, there's a whole thing about, people believing that folks are lying if they get PR, which means that fragrances are sent to you from brands or companies or whatever. That's a whole nother conversation. I'm not going to get into all of that. But when you're newer, it can be easy. I think what I'm saying is to be disillusioned because you're hearing someone say, I really, really like Marc Jacobs, the eau de toilette version. This feels fresh and clean and lovely to me, and it's great for spring. And you try it and you go, ooh, maybe this smells like a winter fragrance for me. Or maybe this smells a little stinky to me. Or I don't understand why she's so fascinated with it. And then it's easy to be disillusioned with fragrance content. So I would treat fragrance content as a place to explore what's out there and be sure that you hear different points of view. So I may review this fragrance, but maybe go hear what two or three other people have to say about it too. They might have different opinions, and that can help shape whether you think you want to try the fragrance or not based on what you're hearing. It's called, like in research, triangulating data. You can triangulate data from various people and decide if the sum of what you're hearing makes the fragrance sound interesting enough for you to want to try it yourself. The bigger point is you don't need every fragrance out there. That's really the point of number one. Meaning, you may watch videos where people have hundreds of fragrances, maybe even thousands, sometimes in the background. It's fun to look at those big collections, and it's not necessarily realistic to think that you should have that also. Please separate content creation for the purposes of bringing you fragrances and variety from your own personal life. That said, friends, if you have unlimited budget and interest and you want an entire wall of thousands of fragrances, go for it. This is your life. This is your hobby. You do what makes you happy. I'm just saying, don't feel pressured to have the same in your background or in your closet if that's just not realistic for you. If you don't have the budget for that, the interest for it, if you haven't developed your sense of fragrance taste enough to know what you want to buy, because you'll end up with a lot of fragrances that you just don't enjoy. If that has happened to you, please drop a note about that down in the comments to confirm what I'm saying. Along the same lines, number two, realize that your tastes in fragrances will change, and that is okay. It's perfectly, like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, perfectly natural for you to go through different phases where you like different kinds of fragrances. And keep in mind that we're all in different parts of the world, depending on where we show up often. For example, if we're in an office space often versus perhaps a doctor's setting, a medical setting versus working from home versus a beauty industry or something like that, what you feel comfortable wearing, the types of fragrances that are going to match your daily lifestyle, maybe your evening life, maybe you're a homebody and you want something cozy to wear at night as a fragrance, or you like to go out on the town often and you want something a little bit more projecting and alluring and intriguing to others. All of that is going to impact the kind of fragrances that make sense to bring into your personal collection. So I would say, as number two, be mindful that your tastes change. Number one, I'll talk about that more in just a second. And two, think about what it means to bring a certain number of fragrances into your collection to match your lifestyle. An example of number two, I've heard this both on the content creator side and I've heard viewers say this too. Perhaps, let's say viewer X. Viewer X really loves sultry, ambery, heavy nighttime fragrances. However, viewer X also realizes that there aren't many times or many occasions where they feel comfortable wearing that. And maybe they regret that they've purchased 40 fragrances that fall into that category. And really, they would have been happy with two or three that are in that family to wear occasionally. So keep that type of thing in mind. Also, if you're someone that needs to be sensitive to other people smelling your fragrances, perhaps you have people in your life that have allergies that you live with or that are triggered, they get headaches from perfume, you work in a medical setting or some other kind of setting where you're close up on people all the time and you want to be sensitive, perhaps it doesn't make sense to have 100 leather fragrances, for example, or 100 very heavily woody fragrances. Perhaps it makes more sense to have skin scent fragrances that are easier to wear and are tolerable for other people in your environment. Those are the things to be mindful of when you think about what your personal fragrance perfume collection looks like and how much of different types of fragrances you want to allow in. I will say, if you're a collector and you just enjoy having different types of fragrances, even if you don't wear them, that doesn't apply to you. Again, your life, your budget, your space, you figure out what you want to do with your collection. But if you're newer, just be mindful of over collecting in any one particular category that really just doesn't match your lifestyle. Similarly, taste change. Right now, I'm having a floral moment, and I've had lots of floral moments in the past, and I'm deep into the white floral moment now. And I'm trying to be mindful of not purchasing every white floral that I think is pretty. For example, I really, really enjoy the note of tuberose. So I have probably a dozen to 2 dozen, maybe more, maybe just a dozen or 2 dozen tuberose fragrances in my collection that I love. I see lots more tuberose and I'm like, "Ooh, those are really pretty." And for me, where I am in my collection, if something comes into my collection, something needs to go out. So I have to have a heart to heart with myself and decide, do I love this new fragrance more than something that's in my collection? And am I willing to replace something in my collection with this? That's a way to help me slow down on like my tuberose obsession. Perhaps you have an obsession with fragrances that have the note of apple and you already have 10 apple fragrances, or you've been buying apple fragrances like crazy. Does it make sense to continue to purchase more, or should you slow down This is up to you. I don't know the answers to these questions. I'm just posing them for you to consider. Should you slow down and think about if and how that particular Apple perfume fits into your collection, or whether you're willing to trade something out for it? And along the lines of your taste changing, I went through this really heavy leather, woody unisex phase when I first started my channel and went a little crazy purchasing those types of fragrances and have had to slowly kind of cull back that collection. I'm comfortable with doing that because I have a channel, so I feel like it goes with the territory of a fragrance collection being pruned and curated over time to match your changes in taste. But as you're first starting out or thinking about adding to your collection, I guess I would suggest to stick to a smaller number and see if you like those same kinds of fragrances in 6 months. Do they still fit your interest? Or have you grown away from that kind of profile and are you now interested in different types? So, in addition to being mindful not to purchase everything out there that sounds great because that's really tempting at first, also consider that your taste will change over time and be mindful of your particular climate, environment, the people around you, and where you go on a day to day basis, and how that matches or is reflected in the types of fragrances that you bring into your collection. On the topic of big collections, sometimes I'll see people in comments criticizing the size of a particular person's collection. A content creator or someone in the comments will say, I have 400 fragrances. And someone comments under that, what are you going to do with all those perfumes? You're never going to be able to use them, and all of that. And so it's a personal thing how big you want your collection to be and whether you think you'll enjoy it enough, sniff it enough, or whatever to make it worth having that many. That's a decision that differs from person to person, just like it does with any other collection in life. Like, who am I to tell you how many shoes you need and are going to use? Who am I to tell you how many t shirts you're supposed to have in your collection, or pairs of jeans, or handbags, or mugs, or whatever else that you like to collect and enjoy? And it's really nobody else's business what your collection looks like and what you do with it and how much you spent or did not spend on it. On the issue of spending, this is my own sort of personal advice that I would say to you if you are my dear friend or my sister or brother. Mind your finances. Fragrances are going to be there. You're going to be able to find many of them on sale if you wait. Some never go on sale, and that's okay. If you're on a limited budget, be mindful of that. There is no need to go into a single penny of debt to purchase a fragrance ever, ever, ever. Trust me when I say the world will continue to spin, the sun will continue to shine if you're unable to purchase a fragrance that you're interested in. Save your money if you don't have it. This is a hobby about disposable income, right? So you've paid all your bills. I mean, you don't need me to say this, but I'll say it anyway. You've paid your bills, you've put your money away, you've invested where you need to invest, and maybe you have a little bit of money left over. That's where you take the money out of for your hobbies, including fragrance. It's no different. Speaking of sales and where to shop, there are lots of places to purchase fragrances, and I would encourage you to explore. And ultimately, you have to feel comfortable where you're purchasing your fragrances. There are some of our friends out here that refuse to purchase on what's called the gray market, which are the discount sites online. They prefer to purchase in store at the counter, and they feel comfortable that those products are the most authentic, they're the freshest, and all of those kinds of things. And that's totally fine. It's your money. You do what's comfortable for you. If you are a retail shopper that prefers to shop perhaps in store at Bloomingdale's or Nordstrom's or Macy's or whatever, Sephora, Ulta, do that. Do that. However, I just want to share that there is a whole nother world of online discount shopping that I think people are sometimes intimidated by. And they hear stories about that world, some of which are true and some of which are honestly just based on misperceptions from the buyers. And so I'm gonna get into a little bit of controversial territory here, so hang with me. Some of the more popular sites are fragrancenet.com. If you're in Canada, or even if you're not in Canada, you can shop Fragrance by CA, Fragrance by Canada, fragrancebyca.com, JOMASHOP.com, Perfume Online, Fragrance X, Aura Fragrances, e-discount perfumes. There are a number of online sites that sell fragrances at a discount. And sometimes I'll hear questions like, how can they afford to sell those fragrances so inexpensively if they're authentic? Good question. And I understand where the question is coming from. Keep in mind that perfume, just like any other commodity out in the business world, can be sold at full retail price and can be sold on sale for the same reasons that all other products go to discount outlets and go on sale too. It could be that there are more produced than the market demands at the time, and the product needs to move quickly, and so it is discounted. It could be that perhaps there is something wrong with something on the bottle. Perhaps the cap is a little bit off. Perhaps the lettering isn't quite perfect. Maybe the sticker is a little bit off on the front of it, the lettering, something like that. In production, something went slightly wrong. It's still a beautiful product, but it can't be sold at full retail because it has a slight flaw. That could be a case too. It could be that pallets of fragrances were purchased with anticipation of being sold by buyers that do buying for big retailers, and they overestimated how much they needed and they need to move product quickly. It could be any number of reasons that fragrances are at discount sites. And I will share that most of the popular gray sites are perfectly legitimate and they sell legitimate, authentic fragrances to the audience at a discount. So I would say don't be afraid to shop those sites. If you are afraid and you want to stick to retail, that is your choice. Don't let anyone shame you or make you feel bad because you enjoy paying full price. By the same token, don't let anyone make you feel bad for waiting for a discount. Eventually, most fragrances will be discounted somewhere, somehow. Like I said, some just never go on discount, and that's okay. Maybe you have to make a decision about whether you want to pay full price or just avoid those altogether. I will say if you shop on Mercari, if you shop on eBay or any secondhand sites, do be very careful about fragrances from more popular houses. So by that, I mean Parfums de Marly, Amouage, Tom Ford, Initio, houses that are more popular worldwide are more expensive. Fragrance Dubois, Maison Francis Kurkdjian. Just be careful about purchasing those secondhand. In fact, my personal choice is to stay away from purchasing those very popular brands that are expensive. I tend to follow the rule of thumb. If it's too good to be true, when it comes to fragrance secondhand, it usually is. So I've had people say to me, for example, I got this $500 fragrance for $30 and it's a real bottle. And I'm like, ooh, if it's something that I know is popular and counterfeited often, I don't buy it secondhand. I'd rather just pay the full retail price or wait until the retailer has a discount or buy it on one of these trusted discount sites. So I know that's a controversial topic. People have a lot of opinions about it. I just know enough to be very careful shopping on secondhand sites, especially for the popular fragrances. Next, I want to go to the concept that tastes are so different. As I mentioned before, your taste will change, but I also want to share that as you're listening to fragrance reviews, keep in mind that each reviewer has their own interests, their own fragrances that they're attracted to, their own opinions about fragrances that are shaped by their experiences, their olfactory palette, their interest in different types of notes. And it doesn't make one reviewer right and the next one wrong. They really are just opinions, and you will have your own thoughts as you try out fragrances as well. So I do watch a lot of fragrance YouTube, and the purpose of me watching fragrance YouTube is to just get different impressions of fragrances. There have been many times that a peer reviewer here on YouTube has enjoyed something that I didn't quite like, and it's actually changed my opinion where I've thought, oh, I hadn't quite perceived that fragrance to smell that way. Let me try it again. And then I pick up whatever it is that they're perceiving. The same thing can happen the other way where I like something and they disliked it and they said something about it that I hadn't noticed. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I can never smell that fragrance the same way again because now I pick up that XYZ note that they said. I mean, it's just the fragrance game. It's similar to food. Everyone has different food interests. Some people enjoy sushi. Some people are disgusted by sushi. Some people love mac and cheese. Some people hate it. It's the same kind of thing. And I bring that up to say to take fragrance reviews as one, entertainment, two, a source of just general information that you can keep in mind as you try your on your own and make your own decisions about things, and three, as a way to either include something as a possibility or to exclude it as a possibility. For example, if I hear five people whose taste I understand say they really hate something, chances are maybe I'm not going to like it either. I mean, I may go ahead and try it as well, but or if I hear 10 people who I trust rave about it, I'm curious and I want to try it myself to see if it's something that I might like as well. I think the lesson there is just to be open minded about fragrances, give them a sniff yourself, and to take reviews as entertainment and a source of just general information, not as gospel or as pure fact. Next, I want to talk about a debate that I personally find completely unnecessary, and it is the debate about niche versus designer. So, first of all, people confuse what the word niche means. All that niche fragrance means is that the brand that is selling that line of perfumes only makes fragrance. That's really it. That is it. Niche. At one point, it meant that niche was probably going to be more expensive. I think those days are behind us as designer fragrance prices creep up. Some people believe that niche is better quality than designer. And I find that really curious, particularly because I have a good sense of where fragrance ingredients come from. There are only so many companies in the world that make fragrance ingredients. And I can probably 99 times out of 100 tell you the handful of places where people are buying fragrance ingredients. And they're all the same, whether it's designer or niche, all of those perfumers are gathering their materials from the same handful of places. And by places, I mean companies that manufacture those materials. The creation of perfume materials is a complex process. There are lots of different ways to extract scents from raw materials or to reinvent scents in a synthetic way in a lab. And those all go into bulk ingredients that perfume houses use. So some of those are of higher quality than others, but I guarantee you that designer brands and niche brands and celebrity brands too are gathering those materials from the same sort of handful of places worldwide that produce these materials. Unless a house has their own lab and their own process of extracting and or creating materials, and some do, but very few do. The vast majority of perfume houses are getting their materials from similar places. Perhaps they're buying a more natural version of the same product. I'm trying to think of an example. Let's say a particular floral note. There could be a natural version of it that is created in a certain way, and there can be like a synthetic, generic version of it. So that may be places where there's difference, but I think this misconception that niche houses all this is so silly. I can't even believe I'm talking about this. That niche houses all use the highest quality ingredients every time and that designers use cheaper materials. It is just not accurate. If you want to believe that, I can't stop you. I'm just telling you what I know from experience and from my own research and observation. The other thing about the niche designer argument that's interesting just from a sociological, psychological, marketing perspective is that because niche has been associated with being higher cost, there's also been, at least for a portion of the population, a belief that it's better, that more expensive equals better. I'm talking about people that there's a mindset, right, that exclusively believe that if it's more expensive, it must be better. And if it's not as expensive, that must be a sign that it's of poor quality. And that's just not the case. But it's a marketing and exclusivity mindset. And people have decided, right, wrong, or indifferent, that if it's niche and it's more expensive, then it must mean higher quality, it must be more exclusive, and therefore better. I don't subscribe to that frame of mind. I personally like fragrances across a spectrum. My signature scent is still a designer scent by not by Lo, but by her perfumer. It's under Jennifer Lopez, and it's 20 something dollars on the market right now. And I also have fragrances in my collection that I have purchased and some that have been gifted to me that are way into the high hundreds. The most expensive fragrance I've ever purchased on my own with my own dollars is Atlantide by Tiziana Terenzi, the sea star with the, it's a white bottle with a sea star draped over the top, tuberose, beautiful fragrance. That was over $300. I think that was with taxes and everything. It came in at about $346. But I've purchased fragrances as low as $10 and everything in between. I bring all of that up to say that you're allowed to have your own personal preferences, but don't get caught up in the niche versus designer argument. I think it's a useless argument. There are some really gorgeous, beautiful designers that smell fantastic. They smell beautiful in the air. They're crowd pleasing. The same is true for niche and vice versa. There are some stanky niche and there's some stanky designer. It's a silly differentiation that I think is unnecessary. I will stop talking about that and move on. I think the last thing that I would say is to just be cautious and careful with channels and content that aim to hate and tear down the fragrance community, fragrance collecting, all of that. It's, in my opinion, a very silly waste of time. And I also think that content is quite opportunistic in that it's not creative content to go to a fragrance channel. And this happens in the makeup space and in other collecting spaces too. Go to another channel, take that person's content and completely tear it down That is not original or creative or interesting content, in my opinion. And the bigger thing that I just want to share for folks that are new is that it's designed to make it seem like there's something wrong with enjoying fragrance, with collecting fragrance, with exploring fragrance, with spending your own money however you want to on whatever hobby, and in this case, fragrance. And I just think that is a silly waste of time. If you enjoy fragrance, don't let that be tainted by other people's impressions about it. If you're not in the fragrance world, it's really easy to look at someone's collection and say, oh my gosh, you have 100 perfumes. That's so wasteful. That's so this, that's so that. Ignore all of that. Everyone is entitled to a hobby. Everyone is entitled to enjoy something. If fragrance collecting is your thing, as I always say, as long as you're fiscally responsible, enjoy yourself. Enjoy yourself. Don't let the haters get you down. If you like celebrity fragrances, don't let the snobs get you down. Vice versa. Look, even though I just mentioned the niche designer argument, if you exclusively love niche fragrances, enjoy them. Do you have your collection in the way that makes sense for you? You get to curate it. It's yours. So don't let all of that content that aims to tear down and criticize and judge affect you. Just enjoy your hobby. Fragrance is supposed to be fun. I enjoy exploring fragrances, even when I come across fragrances that are horrible, that I absolutely hate, that stink, that burn my nostrils. It's still kind of fun to try it out and get a sense of what it's like and form an opinion about it. All right, I hope that this was helpful and joyful to listen to. Do let us know your thoughts down in the comments. And if you've been around for a while, either content creator or viewer, and you have some thoughts to add in to this conversation, share it down in the comments. Don't be stingy with your advice. We're all here to help each other out. Take care. See you in the next video.